Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, sometimes you even need the small things to put a smile on your face, and if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast where we sit down with a wide ranging variety of industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And I mean, if you like how we do things around here, subscribe to the podcast. We'd love it if you did. You can find us over on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, basically wherever you get your podcasts. And plus, we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd really appreciate it. Also, please follow us on the social media. As the kids call it, you can find us over on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, either at In the Seats or at its podcast one for all sorts of updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because if it's, if it's a film, if it's a show, we love to write about it and talk about it, and we love it when you come and read about it. So please stop on by. This episode, to be fair, is behind. I should have published this about a week plus ago. But the madness of the Toronto International Film Festival definitely knocked me on my butt and knocked a few things behind schedule, but that happens from time to time. We're diving into the world of Disney Plus and looking at the brand new short series that is on their streaming platform now called Doug Days. And it is, it's a delightful re-entering into the world of Doug, who, if you do not remember, is the lovable dog from Disney and Pixar's Up. And each short is basically everyday events that happen in Doug's backyard, and we see it all through the exciting, if not slightly distorted eyes of everyone's favorite talking dog, Squirrel! But I digress. And it comes from writer and director and Bob Peterson, who was the voice of Doug and has done plenty of stuff. And it's so delightful. It was so much fun, and we had the distinct pleasure of sitting down not only with Bob Peterson, but also producer Kim Collins about the genesis of Doug Days and how they got it going and just sort of the challenges therein, and especially making, I guess, short content or different content for streaming services like Disney Plus. Because, I mean, this could have been a feature or a show, but as a series of shorts, it's really, really quite delightful. And go to Disney Plus and check it out, because I think you will enjoy it. But enjoy our talk with Bob and Kim first, because it's a darn good one. First off, just thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Now, I guess my first question is, because obviously I love the show. Like, walk me through sort of, I guess, the initial idea to sort of expand this universe of Up, because in many ways this almost feels like this may have been like cocktail napkin ideas you were scratching down if there had been an Up 2.
Well, I mean, there just was no idea put forward for Up 2. Pete Docter was off directing other things, and it didn't happen. It felt like it had such a nice ending to it that, all of these things, these movies, we only want to put them forward if we can come up with a suitable idea. But when Disney Plus came along, I thought, well, what about shorts for these? And it seems like Doug would be a good main character, just to have a little bit of a silly mini sequel, right? It starts at the end of Up and goes before the credits, where Doug has his own puppies and all that stuff. And why not have a little bit of fun, especially during the pandemic, with these characters, as well as check in with Carl to see how he's doing, given Ellie's thought that he should move forward with new adventures. How's he doing on that? Is he having new adventures, albeit little tiny ones? And so, I pitched the idea. I also wanted it to be about a dog's perspective in a dog's life, just to sort of peer inside what a dog thinks and feels.
Well, we all love our dogs. And I mean, it comes out in the show as well, and it's one of those things where, especially when I'm watching it, I'm always kind of amazed because, I mean, to do any of these projects, it takes a village. But
Yep.
when you were in sort of in the early stages of this, you had to sort of build your village via remote. Kim, can you kind of walk me through sort of the logistics and the problems of just basically trying to produce something like this when no one's in the same room?
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, one of the great things about Pixar when we make anything, feature films, all of it is we get together a lot. We're very much a team approach. Our reviews have a lot of people listening and contributing, just any kind of meeting. So to have that sort of immediately not available when we had to shift to work from home and do so quite quickly, we just had to try to figure out how do you get that same spirit back, that same kind of collaboration when everyone is sort of flat on a screen and everyone's in a zillion little boxes. And, it was a process. People had to just even figure out how they work from home. Even my own internet apparently was slower than it needed to be. And so once we all sort of got just the logistics out of the way with the amazing support system of our systems teams and all the different studio people who help us. They are amazing partners as well. Then we just sort of figured out what's a team dynamic over these screens. And we found a lovely rhythm. We found a great way to share. We had team meetings where everyone wore silly hats or had like a theme background. And, it still had that great team dynamic ultimately.
It was fun in a way. I didn't have to commute. I commute an hour each way to Pixar. And so I had 2 extra hours to dance around, do whatever. And so I was happy about that. And the other thing I was surprised about was just that we could move forward creatively, but that people's lives were welcomed in. Like someone is working on an animation, we're looking at their shot, but their cat or their little kid wants to jump up on their lap, and it was all welcomed in. So then you have this little kid looking in at our Zoom meeting, and that was great. I enjoyed having people welcome their family into the process.
No, that's fantastic. And I mean, I think something I really enjoyed about the show is just that it really captures not only sort of the energy and the fun of it, but it captures sort of the emotional core of it at the same time. And I'm kind of curious to hear from both of you on this. How hard was it to sort of recapture that energy? Because like there has been a little bit of separation, and like did it take a minute to sort of find that voice again?
Yeah, when I was writing them, it sure did. And I ended up, making it just a little bit more on the silly side. And then as we started working with Ed Asner, his voice started coming back to me, and his relationship with Ellie and Doug started hitting me a bit more. And I wanted to end each episode with a person and their dog, and sort of the emotions that happen between you and someone you love that happens to be a furry dog. And I did it for like 3 of them. But that last one in the science, where Carl just sort of talks about how he feels about Doug, that became something very important to follow through on. And so it wasn't the emotion of Ellie, but it was the emotion of a dog and a person taking care of each other, really.
And then to elaborate a little bit more on that, as you pointed out, Up was a long time ago. We mentioned in our presentation, but, all of the characters, like we've completely changed how our animation tools since then. And we had to sort of bring them into the now, but we had to also preserve what people remember so fondly from Up. So we took that very much to heart. Wanted to make sure that they matched expectations while still meeting these new tools, these new systems. And then also just being a streaming project, trying to honor up with basically, we're not a feature film. We have a different sort of schedule. It's a little more compressed. It's a smaller project. And could we achieve the beautiful nuance and animation or just the beauty of the lighting? And it is a testament to every person who worked on this that I feel very strongly that we honored up in every way. It just looks fantastic.
For sure. And I mean, something else that I'm always fascinated by is just, especially with the advent of the streaming service, because I mean, like you say, it had this idea come around a few years ago. You may have had to structure this into some more of a feature film idea, but now there's more freedom to sort of play and do basically whatever you want. How has sort of the creative workflow changed with the advent of the streaming service?
Well, I think, we're absolutely now doing both streamer content and feature film content. And so there's some logistics that we just have to figure out how things flow now in this process. But we've become really good. A lot of it's just communication between departments, becoming better at that, and logistics. But one nice thing is that working in streaming, especially for shorts, it's a little bit more like live action. You may not have a massive crew, and so you end up being a little more creative about how to finish the project, doing more with less. And that always, for me, makes for a better project. For whatever reason, those constraints, when you have to think of something funny, but it can't have 10,000 explosions in it, you end up finding something you never would have thought of, had you not had these constraints. But, it just taught us how to manage large numbers of disparate things as opposed to just feature films.
And also to that, to sort of another part of your question, it's enabling a lot more voices out of Pixar, because early on we just used to do the one feature film and then the next feature film, and now there's so many opportunities, and there's just so many voices that are able to show how they want to express themselves creatively. So that's been super. I've been at Pixar for a long time now, I think 21 years. So to see that evolve is just amazing.
Yeah, it certainly seems like with the advent of streaming, we have more personal, smaller stories that these filmmakers will do. Even larger films like Luca, it's Enrico Casarosa's childhood put on screen, really. And so it seems like we're migrating toward very heartfelt, personal stories.
Because I mean, in my mind, just as a sort of a person on the outside looking in, it always feels like, okay, there may be other people working on shorts or this, that, or the other, but okay, everyone drop everything, you got to go work on the big movie. But now it does really feel like there is sort of this multi-level sort of project and things always kind of on the go. Like has the launch of the streamer sort of just allowed you guys to do more?
Oh, I think so. And also different types of things. Like if we were to pitch a Doug Day short, it would have just been one short.
Right.
But like with Forky Asked the Question, we were able to do a number of shorts, and with Doug Day's, a number of shorts that really wasn't available to us before.
Now, I'm curious for both of you, and I mean, this is something I always like to ask. Was there a moment in your life or sort of a movie that sort of got you into this business? Because I mean, I can imagine working at Pixar is obviously sort of a dream of beyond dreams, but like sort of how did you ultimately get started, and like what was it that sort of set you down this path?
Do you want to start, Kim?
I do not. I have to think about
Okay.
it. You start.
Well, I have a pretty good line that I've thought about through the years, and it was, I had a little record player that had a zoetrope on it with a little marching snowman, and that was and mirrored faceted thing that sat on top of the record. And so that was my first look at animation. I actually have footage of that. I was like 3. But then I went to Mary Poppins when I was 4 or 5, when it first came out. And that blew me away as a 4-year-old. And I always tell the story, my umbrella on the way, we had a rainstorm and it blew out and I was crying. And ironically, there were umbrellas in Mary Poppins. But then it was Jungle Book when I was 6. Blue the Bear, was amazing. And then it was Disneyland, the Tiki Room, where the whole room comes to life when I was like 10. And that sort of set me on this path that eventually brought me back to the Disney family. It took a while. But so I would say Mary Poppins Jungle Book was the first thing that got me going.
For me, yeah, I mean, I studied live action filmmaking in college. I didn't realize animation was something you could really pursue as a career because I was not an artist, and at the time I didn't think that there were other jobs besides being an artist there. And I sort of fell into it at Disney Animation. And I ended up working on The Lion King in an administrative capacity. And I remember it's like my first week, and there was a giant pin board similar to the one behind me, and it was just covered with profiles of rhinoceri, and they all looked the same to me, but there was like a 20-minute meeting where 5 people just were like, well, I think I like that one, or I might like this one. And I went back and I looked again, and they were all very subtly different. And I think in that moment, I just was like, what is this all about? And then I never looked back.
And I got hired at Pixar to do commercials. A lot of their animators had migrated over to the feature side to do Toy Story. And so they backfilled with some folks. And so I came in as a freelance animator. And at night, though, I would sneak around Pixar and look at all the storyboards for Toy Story. And just, I'd never seen anything like that. I hadn't gone to school for any of this. But I then ran into some mentors in story, a guy named Joe Raft, who taught me the storyboarding game. And I was so lucky to find that. But it was pretty magical, still is.
Now, I mean, this is something I'm always kind of curious about as well, because something I love about just sort of the filmmaking business in general is that the technology is constantly changing and it's constantly evolving. I mean, people can make a movie on their iPhones right now, you know what I mean? And while in live action, you'll have people who want to work with like film and work with 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter. You never hear stories of people on the animated side of things who are sort of holding on to their pad and their marker. Like, I'm kind of curious from your perspectives, like in the business, are there still sort of pockets of more traditional animation, or is it just a question of trying to keep up with the technology as it evolves over the years?
Well, I hope 2D never goes away. I hope we continue to tell stories in all the different versions of animation. And there are pockets of people who love 2D only. And there are pockets of people like me. I started in animation in 3D. I never really got to work in 2D. But there's so much drawing that goes on, even in 3D, where we're constantly drawing storyboards, we're drawing developmental art, and all of that is you and a pencil, albeit a digital pencil now. And so it's very, very alive. It's pretty much the way it was done up through Snow White, in a way. We still look at storyboards and animatics and things like that, and then we switch over to the 3D realm. So stop motion, 2D, and computer graphics, there's a place for all of them at the table, and I hope each continues.
I have to agree. Yes, I'm a big believer in stop motion, in 2D, both traditional and digital. I think they're all have so much to offer in so many different ways, and I hope they all continue in addition to what we do.
I mean, you're getting the point in CG, and I've worked in this industry for a long time, and I see things as like, how do they do that? And you can do a lot of things now, fire and smoke and realistic things. And so, but people I think are getting retro and thinking about how you can stylize things with computer graphics. You don't have to make it all 3D
that hyper real,
whichever filmmaker is going, you can do all sorts of styles with it. And that's one other fun thing about computer graphics.
Now, Kim, I'm curious, when producing something like this, because basically the job of a producer is really multifunctional in many ways, and I'm kind of curious, when you're producing a series like this, what are the kind of challenges that come up that people maybe not necessarily would expect?
Oh, let's see. So, as we
Working with
mentioned,
me.
yeah, well, there's Bob. So yeah, I think, we're, like I was saying, Pixar's used to feature films. It's what our pipeline's built towards. It's what our culture is built towards, and then the occasional short. So adapting into making things for streaming in and of itself has been quite a challenge. I think the biggest thing is with the smaller crews, trying to make, we all work together and we all share resources, and resources are also talented people. So to help people who maybe haven't worked in short form and only worked in feature films understand that smaller team and a compressed schedule, every person really counts in a way that feature films can absorb a little bit more of just because by the nature of them, and that they have larger groups. So I think that was sort of the biggest learning curve that I also tried to share as much as possible with, feature film producers, future streaming producers, just anyone who would listen. Bob had to hear it.
Now, Bob, just to put a bow on all this, how long did it take to get the actual voice of Doug back? Because I could imagine that maybe it took a little bit of warming up to do to sort of get back into the sort of the character especially when you had to do the voice work.
Absolutely. I would say, took a couple weeks. Did a pass through and recorded the shorts, and some of it from a closet that I have at home. But and there was something missing. There wasn't an energy to it. And so I went back in and re-recorded everything, and it took about 2 weeks to get it back. And I've done a lot of Roz voice in the years, and I'm starting to sound like Roz, and so that was part of it too, trying to clear my voice enough so that it didn't sound like a Doug Roz hybrid character. But as far as the acting goes, I don't know, man. I've thought about Doug so long. It came back, but again, it took a couple weeks.
Well, you know what? It was worth the effort because I think people are going to love this. And thank you for bringing this world back to our screens. And just congratulations again on the work. And thank you for the time today.
Oh, thank you, David.
Bye.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.